Welcome to Disease Decoded, the MedExplained series where we break down the world's most important health conditions into clear, evidence-based knowledge. I am your host, and today we are talking about HIV and AIDS. Maya is 28 years old. She is a graphic designer living in Cape Town, South Africa, creative, sociable, and healthy by every measure she could see. When her GP suggested a routine HIV test during a checkup, she almost said no. She had been with the same partner for 2 years. She felt fine. The result came back positive. Maya's experience reflects a reality shared by millions. In 2023, an estimated 39.9 million people were living with HIV globally, of whom 53% were women and girls. About 86% of them knew their status. That means approximately 5.6 million people were still living with HIV unaware. In this episode of Disease Decoded, you will understand exactly what HIV is, how it spreads, how it is treated, and why, with the right care, a person living with HIV can live a full, healthy life and cannot pass the virus to their partner. Let us begin. So, what exactly is HIV and why does it matter? HIV stands for Human Immunodeficiency Virus. It is a virus that attacks a specific type of immune cell called a CD4 T cell, the very cells your body depends on to fight infection. Over time, if left untreated, HIV progressively destroys these cells, weakening the immune system until the body can no longer defend itself. This is the cycle. HIV binds to the CD4 cell's surface receptor, injects its genetic material, and replicates inside, producing new viral copies that destroy the host cell. Repeated across billions of cells, this is how HIV dismantles the immune system over years, if not treated. HIV and AIDS are not the same thing, and this distinction matters. HIV is the virus. AIDS, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, is the most advanced stage of HIV infection, diagnosed when the CD4 count drops below 200 cells per cubic millimeter, or when certain opportunistic infections appear. With modern treatment, the vast majority of people living with HIV never progress to AIDS. How does HIV actually spread? And equally importantly, how does it not? HIV is transmitted through specific bodily fluids: blood, semen, vaginal and rectal fluids, and breast milk. The most common routes are unprotected sexual intercourse, sharing needles or syringes, and mother-to-child transmission during pregnancy, birth, or breastfeeding. Only through these specific routes, not through everyday contact. What HIV cannot do is equally important. HIV is not transmitted through casual contact, handshakes, hugging, sharing food or drinks. It is not in saliva, tears, or sweat. It cannot be spread by mosquitoes or other insects, through air or water, or from toilet seats or doorknobs. Stigma, built on misinformation about how HIV spreads, remains one of the biggest barriers to people getting tested and treated. Knowing what HIV cannot do is as clinically important as knowing what it can. The only way to know your HIV status is to get tested. Modern HIV tests are fast, accurate, and widely available. Lab antigen antibody tests can detect HIV within 18 to 45 days of exposure. Rapid tests and self-test kits, available at pharmacies and online, detect HIV within 23 to 90 days of exposure. A positive self-test always requires confirmatory laboratory testing. WHO recommends HIV testing for all adults in high-prevalence settings and for anyone with potential exposure risk. Testing is the first step. Knowing is power. This is where the science becomes genuinely remarkable. Antiretroviral therapy, ART, is a combination of medicines that suppress HIV in the body. It does not cure HIV, but it reduces the viral load to undetectable levels. On ART, people with HIV live long, healthy lives. Without treatment, the viral load, the amount of HIV in the blood, remains high and damages the immune system. On ART, it falls to undetectable. That transformation is everything. The global progress on treatment has been extraordinary. Of the estimated 39.9 million people living with HIV in 2023, 86% knew their HIV status, approximately 34.3 million people. Of those who knew their status, 89% were on treatment. And of those on treatment, approximately 94% had a suppressed viral load. Across all people living with HIV globally, 72% were virally suppressed. And this brings us to U equals U, undetectable equals untransmittable. When a person with HIV is on effective treatment and their viral load is undetectable, they cannot sexually transmit the virus to a partner. The risk is not merely low, it is zero. The partner study, which followed 972 serodifferent couples across Europe, recorded 0 HIV transmissions from a virally suppressed partner. 0. U equals U is not merely a scientific finding, it is life-changing, removing one of the most painful dimensions of living with HIV, the fear of harming someone you love. Prevention works, and the toolkit has never been more powerful. PrEP, pre-exposure prophylaxis, is a medication for HIV-negative people that reduces the risk of acquiring HIV through sex by up to 99% when taken consistently. PrEP now comes in two forms. Oral PrEP is a daily pill, widely available across more than 70 countries. Injectable PrEP offers an alternative for people who prefer not to take a daily pill. Cabotegravir, given every 2 months, and lenacapavir, given just every 6 months, both providing highly effective, long-acting protection. The broader prevention toolkit includes condoms, highly effective when used consistently, regular HIV testing, knowing your status and your partner's, needle and syringe programs for people who inject drugs, treatment as prevention. A person on ART with an undetectable viral load cannot transmit HIV sexually, and voluntary medical male circumcision, which reduces transmission risk by up to 60% in high-prevalence settings. Let us return to Maya for a moment. When Maya started RT in Cape Town, she was enrolled in one of the largest public sector antiretroviral programs in the world. South Africa treats more people for HIV than any other country on earth, built on government commitment, international partnership, and the daily work of tens of thousands of healthcare workers. Within 6 months, Maya's viral load was undetectable. She was U equals U. Her story, fictional but grounded in the real experiences of millions, is part of the greatest public health scale-up in history. Sub-Saharan Africa carries approximately 65% of the global HIV burden. In 2023, an estimated 25.9 million people in the region were living with HIV, with Southern and Eastern Africa most heavily affected, including South Africa, Mozambique, Tanzania, Uganda, Zimbabwe, and many others. The distribution is concentrated, but the scale is historic. 25.9 million lives, families, clinicians, communities, bound together by this epidemic. The response has been equally historic. In 2023, 20.6 million people in Sub-Saharan Africa were on antiretroviral therapy, the highest absolute number of any region globally. PEPFAR, the Global Fund and national governments have supported treatment for over 20 million people since PEPFAR's launch in 2003. In 2 decades, access to ART has grown from 300,000 to 20.6 million, one of the most dramatic public health achievements in history. The story of HIV in Sub-Saharan Africa is not a story of burden alone. It is one of the most ambitious and successful public health responses the world has ever seen. In this episode of Disease Decoded, we talked about what HIV is and how it attacks the immune system. We talked about how HIV spreads and how it does not. We talked about testing, the science of antiretroviral therapy, and the evidence behind U equals U. We talked about PrEP, oral and injectable, and the full prevention toolkit. And we talked about the HIV response in Sub-Saharan Africa, one of the most successful public health efforts of our time. HIV is not a death sentence. With treatment, it is a manageable condition. And with U equals U, a person living with HIV on effective ART poses zero risk of sexual transmission to their partner. If this episode of Disease Decoded helped you understand HIV better, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to MedExplained101 for a new episode every week, across YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, X, and Substack. This is MedExplained 101, from confusion to clarity.